to the Square D GAA Tactics and Analysis podcast with myself, your host, Paddy Meal, and the great Stephen O'Mara. How are you, Steve?
Not so bad, Paddy. Not so bad.
I know some people hate the abbreviations, but you're stuck with it for now, okay? So listen, welcome one and all, and big shout out to all our new viewers, wherever you are tuning in right throughout the world. The two live matches yesterday, the Munster final, and of course the Connacht final. Galway 220, Sligo 12 points. And after that one, that of course was the prelude on RTE. Then we had Kerry 5-14, Clare 15 points. Both washouts, really, and I don't mean in terms of the weather, both pretty much over at half time. We'll start in the deep south in the Gaelic grounds in Limerick. I mean, it would have been outlandish, Stephen, to even suggest before either game, but we're looking at the first one here, Kerry and Clare, that the All-Ireland champions were ever really under any type of pressure. Nobody really fancied Clare in this one. As I said, outlandish.
Yeah, look, in the bigger scheme of things, it was an absolutely one-horse race. Now, we will look at an alternative argument to that afterward, or potential for what could be. First thing you have to say to give Clare their dues, you know, the actual score is 29-15. The expected score, 25.7, 17.8. I had my programmer busy during the week, giving me separate charts so I could separate my actual score from my expected score, but I don't need it for Clare and Kerry, because you can see consistently from top to bottom there, the tick line being the actual score. Kerry have shot consistently above it, and Clare have shot consistently below it. So that thinner line would be a fairer reflection on where the game was at. Saying that, you know, the shot maps tell quite the story. There's Clare's shot map, you know, regular enough, I suppose. I've never seen a shot map like Kerry's. The circles with the blacks around them are goal shots. I count 15 shots in there inside 21, 22 meters. So look, that doesn't tell a lie. It was ultimately, you know, this one was nearly over after 15 minutes. But yeah, there's possibly some sort of hope for Clare, which we might look at in a second.
Is it? So you've already touched on it. We're looking at it maybe from an alternative view, because we could come out with all the usual cliches, the kind of mundane analysis of, well, it was over after 15 minutes and blah, blah, blah. But I suppose let's dissect that further, okay? Clare actually did, well, they were never really in the game. They did actually cut open the Kerry defence, didn't they, in particular stages? And I don't know about you now. You're the trained eye, I'm the untrained eye. I'm watching it go, and some of them, normally you would say, yeah, they were under huge pressure taking on those shots, but they weren't really, were they?
No, look, let's call a spade a spade. The game is what it was. Even within the expected score context, it should have been an 8-point victory for Kerry, and Kerry should above expected score. I suppose how I sort of came into the media in this was I was reporting on my own website in Dublin and on Vincent's and Ballymun, and I consistently predicted Ballymun to get beaten by Vincent and possibly by the likes of Jude's and Plunkett's, because Ballymun had ripped teams apart. But they'd end up playing most of the game man on man, because it was still sort of pre the modern, very possession-based game, and they were so athletically superior. But I'd break games down and say, well, this is what Ballymun scored into blanket defences or zonal defences. And you'd be looking at maybe 2 out of 14. And you say, and they scored 3-14 on man or overlaps, but are they going to get those man-on-man against other teams? Colin Parkes had picked up one of those articles, and next thing I was writing for Sports Joe. And that's how I actually got into this. Now, that was very black and white. This isn't as, but I'm going to show you 2 key elements here. And I'm going to sound like a broken record, because, again, I'm talking about the underdog against the Masters here. And at halftime, I was going tweeting, and I was saying, well, right, first problem here is, well, this is full time, but to give a general overview, there's been 19 turnovers. Kerry's got their hands on ball on 19 turnovers. They've scored 3-6 off that. That's a 79% point to turnover ratio. Now, unfortunately, look at the opposition kick out one. They've won 2 and scored 1-1. So that's a 200% score ratio per phase. Now, what's interesting is on their own kick out, they've got 1-7 from 22. It's 45%. It's high, but it's not astronomically high. It's very high. The point I've made about Monaghan against Kerry and Monaghan against Tyrone, if you look at the first half, this image here is the story of the first half. It's Clare trying to play Kerry football against Kerry. Now, I did this at 4 speed. I stand to be corrected on the numbers. But by my take, Clare tried 7 of these quarterback type passes in the first half. 5 got turned over. They scored. They got 2 shots. 1 of them a point, 1 of them a wide. But when you actually look at the period, unlike Galway, Sligo, we're going to see, there's a period here of 8 minutes after half time. Now, you can dissect any game. And you'll probably find a 5 or 10 minute period where one team is better than the other. But this first 8 minutes of the second half, there was phenomenal offensive play by Clare. And if we look at it now still, because their defense was really poor, we're going to finish it with that. But they've got 3 shots out of 5 possessions, 60%. Expected score per 10 phases is 4.7. Now, the National League average is 4. Obviously, Kerry are 6.7. I'm looking at Clare's offense here. And if we look here, we're going to see the same thing happen on all 3 of these moves. They keep it through the hands. And I'm going to say only Mayo on a par with them. And this is coach. And I can see why Clare have stayed in Division 2, had stayed in Division 2 for 7 years. 45 degrees, off the shoulder, angle, and it ripped Kerry apart. We look here, ball comes out in the loop, takes a 45-degree angle. Second man goes at 45 degrees, man coming off the shoulder. The plant and cut. What does it do? Look at the Kerry man in the bottom of the arrow. Now, we probably fouled him, but the rules are either grey or badly interpreted by referees. He didn't need to foul him. Could have just stood his ground. Takes the Kerry man out. Clare man running through. Probably should have slipped the hand pass to put them through on goal, but takes on the man and scores. That's how Mayo play football. That's how Mayo play their best football. Here we are now. I've started here. It's noteworthy because if we look, Kerry are set. Like if you take a timeout here, Kerry aren't going to be any more numerically or structurally set than they are. Not quite 45 degrees, but he's slightly off centre. Sorry. Point out here, Kerry have a double sweeper in place here. So they are set. Goes at the angle, switches the angle back. What do we see? The number 5, or is it 6'5", I think? 45-degree run. He goes at 45 degrees, slips it back the other way, 45 degrees. Incidentally, I didn't mark this in the expected score because I'm interpreting that he's tried to flick the ball across, that the keeper's intercepted a pass, not a shot. If I call this a 1-on-1, or if that hand pass is slightly better, we're looking at Clare at over 6 points per 10 expected score in this phase. And I just cut Kerry open. This one, throw in, Clare win it, kick. He kicks it down the line. Now, this isn't the kick I'm talking about in the first half. This is one, your Junior B kick. You know, Junior B will kick this 4 times out of 5. Kicks it down the way. Kerry get back defending. Again, we see it's a bit of a breakaway, but it's still tag a man +1. Kerry have the extra man. What does he do? Leans in at 45 degrees. Goes back at 45 degrees. Man comes on the loop. What direction does he go? 45 degrees. I always talk about good football played at 45 degrees. Talking about that Vincent's team that always beat Ballymun. All they did was play at 45 degrees. This one's amazing. There's so many 45-degree switches here. Kerry are left in 6s and 7s. This man switches back. And this isn't a sidestep. This is what I call a 45-degree switch back, because you're not trying to beat the man. You're just changing all the angles, and you're inviting runners to come from positions defenders don't want to come from. Next man comes on the loop. What does he do? This is a sidestep. 45 degrees. Man in the back door. Goal shot. Now, notwithstanding Clare's defence needs a whole makeover, as we'll see. Those 8 minutes, Clare tore Kerry apart. But it was within their own hands, pardon the pun, play like that all the game instead of kicking ball away through the middle third, like Monaghan did against Kerry in the league, like they did against somebody else. We analysed them against somebody else where they kept kicking them away through. Clare the same. Clare play Mayo style football, keep it through the hands, 45 degrees. They look like one of the most exciting, well organised, well structured offences in the country, but they just didn't play it like that.
And I suppose just quickly on that, though, it comes down to, and Clare do so much right. I know Clare very well. My mum's from Clare, so I'm very familiar with the Banner County. Now, she's hurling Clare, but I know about that pocket in West Clare. They're doing so much right. They have a modus operandi at the start of the year, okay? You mentioned their brilliant record that they had in Division 2. It probably then, to a point then, it's excellent, but it just comes down to probably personnel then, doesn't it, in terms of they can be coached, they can be choreographed to be so good at doing certain things. They're working at optimum levels, but essentially it comes down to that's where your Mayo, Dublin, your top teams, Galway, one bounces off the other. Is that fair?
I made this point against Louth last week, and I've only seen them once, so it might have been a bad day. But I'm looking at Division 1 football all year in the last few years, more or less. What I do notice when you go outside the top 8, 9, 10 teams of what I've seen so far, not big enough sample sizes to call it science, but Clare did for all that. There were, even when they were playing that style of game in the third quarter, 2 really poor ball handling errors. Louth had, I think, 7 of them against Offaly last week, kind of kept Offaly on top or in the game, stroke on top as the first half went on. So there's definitely ball handling issues. But the point I'm making is this is a decision. This is a decision for Clare. And I thought the same. I was down in Ennis in 2019, I think. They played in Munster and they were battered in the first half and they came back in the second half. I felt it was kicking too much ball away. And the point I'm making is notwithstanding the fact that they'll have more basic handling errors than Kerry will. If they chose to say, no, we're keeping this in the hand, and we'll play that 45 degrees off the shoulder game, they could have serious joy, especially against Kerry, as we're about to see.
Okay. Kerry have a couple of big games. The championship restarts them. You mentioned their defence. Who are the big guys now picking out? Like, who are they? Where are they targeting? From what you've seen yesterday, and the very small sample size.
Well, there's an issue. If you look back at that initial game summary, Clare shot poorly. One, brilliant 1-on-1 goal save there by Kerry. The expected score, which I would imagine is in and around average now, but in the National League Division 1 was 4 points. Sorry, the actual score was 4 points per 10 phases, and the expected score was 4 or 4.1. So that's about where it's at. So that's my barometer for now. Clare's expected score per 10 phases was 4.1. Now, Clare, and huge respect for them, and they've stayed in Division 2 with a tiny football population compared to the rest of the country, possibly the smallest football population in the country, Division 2. And I can see why. That offensive play, I can see why. But you're still Kerry playing a team who've been relegated to Division 3, and you've conceded an expected score of 4.1 per 10 phases. It's just on average, marginally over average for our Division 1 team. This is a Division 3 team. Now, Paddy Tally's been brought down, and I can see Paddy Tally all over it. We look at that again, maybe in a more competitive game. The structures are in place. You can see when there's crossovers, when there's runners through the defence. You can see the structure is there. I get him, you get him, I do this, you do that. That's all there. The problem is Kerry are the Brazil of Gaelic football, but the technical individual defending, like since Mark and Tomas O'Shea have retired, it's been a problem. And you see here, we look at the Kerry man here on the white arrow. This is basic nuts and bolts structural defending. On the crossover, you've got to expect. Now we're looking at full back line here. You've got to expect now. You've got the first man turns right, and actually we're facing the ball here. The first cornerback, I'd actually compliment his angles, his lines are great. When you see that loop, what I call the Coca-Cola bottle, because it goes like the bottleneck and then goes around, you have to know by accident or design, you're going to run into somebody. You've got to go around the back of the man, and you've got to be aware of it. Two Kerry boys crash into each other. Now, it's not the fault of the man who did a good drop step. It's the other cornerback. But that's your two cornerbacks crashing into each other on basic technical defending. That is the bread and butter of modern football. What happens? Man in the back door. That's where that goal chance came from. We look on here again. We see Clare coming down the line. We know this is what hockey calls a vertical interchange. Sorry, what hockey calls, and I took from hockey. Vertical interchange. Got to lead to the loop and shield or the back door cut. What happens? We can see already the Clare corner forward is making shapes to get, and we're talking about the full back line here again. You can see he's making shapes to backdoor cut or loop and shield. Now you can see, we all know what's happening. He's coming around on the loop here because the marking is far behind, which is fine. Protect the backdoor cut. What do we expect is going to happen as this loop is going to go? You've got to run around the inside of the screener or the shielder. He just follows his man. And what happens, of course, number 7 accidentally on purpose crashes into him, and Clare in for an uncontested point shot. So the basic structures are really the basic technical. I think Kerry, they brought Paddy Tally down. You can see it. We'll look at it in depth again, the structures, but the basic technical defending in Kerry is a massive problem. It's nowhere near Galway, Mayo, or Dublin. Nowhere near. They could still win it All Ireland on the Brazil philosophy of whatever you score, we'll score more. And they did it last year. And the structures are good. And again, I thought about Kerry giving away unnecessary frees all through the league. And Jason Foley gave away 3 unnecessary and 4. Ball coming in. There's a sweeper there. Just show him out the line if you're not going to win it. Hand on the back. If you're falling over the man, you've got too close anyway. If you aren't going to win that, you take half a yard back. You let him 1.5 yards, 2 yards away from you. That you're ready for him to turn, that you can react. But we say, here, high ball in. Is he going to win it? Maybe not. Sweeper again. Hands on the back. He's giving out to the referee. His hands on his back. Here we are. Now, this one he had to make a tackle. Angles lines good. As the man turns, hands on the back, just in case the ref might let you away with it. Wraps him around the head. Free. And this one is just straight through his back. So, for me, serious question marks there over the Kerry defence. Technically, I still think there's big problems there.
Okay, so just finally, because I know we're having a shorter show tonight. That's absolutely my fault as well. Clare's defence, you want to just quickly look at that and maybe something for the Donegal management to think about?
Yeah, look, to be honest, look, we obviously I'm judging Kerry by the highest standard, but some of Clare's defending. I mean, it's. I don't want to be disparaging, but I have to be diplomatic here, not to get a bad name in Clare. Some of this defending, I haven't seen nothing like it at this level. We see here it's a tag a man +1. Kerry man runs through the arc. We see the white arrow. Kerry man runs through there. He points, but to who, to where? He's actually, you've 3 Clare men in the section here that could have followed him. Rule number 1 with a sweeper: don't let your sweeper pick up a man unless it's an emergency. There's 3 boys here could have followed. Nobody does. Now watch the man on the white arrow. This is everything I coach how not to tackle. He's square on. He's actually jumping in, landing on his 2 feet. Square on. So we've gone from a blanket defence with a sweeper to no sweeper because no one's followed the man through the arc. The front line tackling, we talk about technical defending. Kerry man hand passes, goes again. There's the fella that was square on the yellow arrow. There's the Kerry man on man, in for a goal, and he scores the goal. Next one, turnover. In fairness to this first boy, I don't know what's going through his head because he does the Makalele. He actually runs to stay goal side of 2 Kerry men. Then the ball gets into near the D. Kerry win the ball out on the pop pass. The same man just stops running. Watch how he's pulling the brakes there. Kerry man keeps running. There's the Clare man who would sprint at 60 yards to cover him and just stopped for no explicable reason. Kerry man's inside. There he is, picking up the ball. The man on the line decides he'll double up with the keeper and leave an unmarked man at the back post. And as you see, at the point of that hand pass, he was outside the square. So that's a goal all day long. Got away with that. And this one here, they press a kick out in fair play. We look at Sligo. Clare did try to press the kick out in fair play. It's the only way we're going to win the game. But you can see Clare in position to lose this on defended. It's 2v2 out here in the section. As it lands, it's 1 up, 1 down. You can see the 15 goes in to get his man. Look at the 11. Fabulous footballer. But again, I'm talking about forwards behind the ball. Bread and butter here is you follow the man. He makes a 1% possibility interception. You can just see he's kind of disguised by the crowd. He tries that jump in basketball interception. Now you're, instead of being set, there's a guy who's legged it back to try and sweep off the far side on the kick out as is standard practice these days. He jumps in basketball. Now you're playing Kerry man and man. Best of good luck to you. David Clifford's man and man. David Clifford's in backdoor cut goal. And, if we want to wonder why David Clifford scored 2-6, and obviously you have to have the magic to score 2-6, but you can give a platform to the magic or not, and they did. Clare's defence, for me, it needs a whole rehaul if they're going to compete in the All-Ireland series.
Okay, so plenty for both counties to think about in the next coming weeks. Okay, as I said, we're stuck for time. Galway, Sligo, Sligo went 2-0 up early on, and people, I think, were starting to get excited. They were wind assisted, but it was never realistic, really, was it?
No, I mean, look, it was the early stage actually belied the fact that it wasn't as close as it looks. If we look here, there's an expected score. I've taken my actual score up. You can see up to 14, 15 minutes if you're not on a phone, but you can see there up to sort of quarter way. It's actually only an expected score of 4 to 2.9. But actually, if you look at the devil of the detail, is that Sligo have had 7 phases, Galway have had 5. It's actually an expected score per 10 phases of 8.1 to 4, even at that stage. By half time, they both had 63% shots, which is interesting, but Galway's are all right in at the goal and goal chances. Sligo's aren't. So look, again, expected score 9.1 to 5 at half time. Wasn't as, Galway had scored 2 goal shots that weren't easy finishes. Again, should have, all things been equal, it's a 19.2 to 10.6 game.
Could Sligo have been braver?
Well, look, the big thing here is, for me, yes, like, you look at the underdog, and the perception is, well, let's not go man on man or press the kick, because if we lose it, we'll be killed. But if you don't, it'll be death by 1,000 cuts. And we look at Galway's kickouts here. This is after 15 minutes. This is what I'd be doing on the laptop, when I'm working with a team. Here's Galway's kickouts to the full back line or half back line. Hands on ball, which were more or less given up. They've won 3 and they've scored 3. So you're kind of saying, you can't afford to keep giving them up. We look over the course of the whole game. Galway have scored 6 from 12 short kickouts. So you've got to expect that's got to keep happening. This was a dead ball. This is a dead ball. They had the wind. For me, you've got to go full court press. Try and get hands on ball. Try and tend them. You're not going to beat them on score per 10 phases. So you've got to get more hands on ball, press the kickouts. And for me, it's the classic underdog error. Let's be cautious. They were, and Galway kept on picking them off.
Particularly in that first half, midway through the first half, they just didn't help themselves, did they?
No, and again, it's just one of those things. They look like they were in it. Now, as I say, those more in-depth stats maybe show that they weren't as in it as they looked. But it was 1-5 to 3 here. They got some good scores early on. Make sure you get your shot off. Don't do this. Don't try a Dermot Connolly pass from 55 yards into a full forward with 4 lads sitting around them. And even this, it turned over. And even when you look at what essentially finished the game as a context. Now, look, Tony McAtee, Cross McGlenn will be saying, if you can't kick this pass to the third man out in that 4v2, he shouldn't be on the field. But there's a big wind. And I'd make the point, I'll talk about it more again, Qatar syndrome, as I call it, since I watched the World Cup. Guys who can only make these passes 95, 96% of the time, when they're playing guys who can do it 99.5% of the time. That's what cost Qatar the World Cup. Structurally, I don't mean winning the World Cup, I mean the games of the World Cup. Structurally fine, but they get these passes wrong 5% of the time. If you're not a 99.5% man on this kick pass, put it through the hands. Massive wind. He actually kicks that up out of screen, allows the wind to take it. Interception, 4v3, goal, game over. I'd just be saying, keep it safe. Don't take any risks. They didn't, and the better football team again at this stage. I think it was 23, 24 minutes in. It was game over.
Can we, and look, I know you said you're talking about an alternative view at the start, okay, and people are waxing lyrical about Galway after yesterday, and a really impressive league as well. But can they take anything out of yesterday? Are you that's involved in coaching? Can Galway? I mean, are there? Is it a glorified challenge match for them? Like, because would they get as much out of the training section?
Look, I don't want to be disparaging towards Sligo. They beat them comfortably. Well, it was like kickouts. I mean, Sligo bodies are the same as Mayo bodies, but they've gone in a box of 6. Now, we looked at this in the league final, and Conor Gleeson's back in goal. And this is the exact image we saw from the Croke Park camera against Mayo, 4v3, and Mayo were cheating and getting away with it. To give Conor Gleeson his dues, he's worked on this, obviously. Here's the exact same dynamic. If you'll pardon the pun, it's a black and white 4v3. Gleeson was being cheated on these by Mayo going long, and Mayo killed them off it. He gets that off short. This one's a bit trickier because it starts with a cluster. So it's moving parts. It's not a standing 4v3, but it ends up as a 4v3 or a 5v4. So it's trickier. Again, he just, he makes that narrow pass out to left corner back. So you got to give credit where it's due there. Here's where Burke is off for 10 minutes on the black card. That's not an easy kick, and he lands it. So I think he's improved hugely. I would still make the point. And look, he's only got along on 3 in total, saying that when the Fat was in the fire against Roscommon, where they had that purple patch in the first 7 minutes of the second half. I don't think it was Bernie Power's best game by a long shot. He did okay, but he still clipped one short. And he won the All-Ireland final for Corra Finn against Kilcoo 2 years ago with the same thing. When Kilcoo were back level, he threw all the shapes, clipped them to the edge of the D. No one spots this. I did a piece on Cluxton last week, how he does this. Sean Kelly's there. For me, he's got to be hit. You're into the wind, hands on ball. Look here again, second half or later on in the half. You can see Sean Kelly's hands are down. Come on, give it to me. And I suppose the big one I'm looking at, and maybe I don't know, another opposition analyst in the country, maybe it's the poker player coming out at me. I would study a keeper's body language on kickouts. Some lads drop their shoulder a bit before they do something. Some lads shake the hips a bit. Some lads do a little thing with their hand. John Lukic of Arsenal used to do this thing where he'd do walk like an Egyptian before he'd kick it long. Well, that was fine in soccer because everyone knew you were doing that in 1989 in English soccer. You can't really see this, but he does a John Lukic. He does a little shimmy and a shake, and it's 2.5 seconds from the time he starts that shimmy and shake to put the boot through the ball, and you'll see how far he's cheated by. The right corner back is out there. So that definitely, look, I thought he was much better. I still am of the opinion, looking at Kerry's defence, which is technically, structurally really poor. I'm looking at Dublin kicking low percentage shots. They never would have. Mayo don't have the individual talent Galway have. I still maintain stop kicking the ball away in the middle third or in the blank defence. I know they got a goal the last day, but they still kicked 5 or 6 away, and it is Sligo. It's not, it's not Mayo, Kerry, Dublin, Derry. I still maintain when the Fat is in the fire in the semi-final or final, you can't be missing that kick out. And if Conor Gleeson's got to work again, he needs to work on eliminating that shimmy and shake. Unless he can shimmy and shake, and then, like Doyle Morgan, would throw all the shapes and then clip it short in the last second. But otherwise, that's a massive tell, and a good opposition analyst will be all over.
Okay, well, look, we're going to be looking in way more detail in the coming weeks, particularly Galway and Kerry, because everybody, I think, expects them to be in the shake-up. So 2 weeks' time, both are out, and let's see how that one develops. Of course, Sligo and Clare, all 4 teams that played yesterday, will all be in the race for the Sam Maguire, because, of course, Sligo made it to the Connacht final. Okay, so that's it for anything else, Stephen, before we go?
No, I suppose there's one final point. I suppose you're looking from Sligo. Look, Clare earned their way. They beat Cork. Obviously, look, it's not a politics show, but the provincial council sort of alone to themselves there. Like, I'd be asking if I was a Sligo footballer, would I really want to be going into the All-Ireland, having beaten New York, taking a proper thumping yesterday, and I'm looking, Meath maybe don't deserve any better, but I'm looking at Cavan, I was looking at some stats this morning, and, I don't think anything is served by Sligo beating New York to get into the All-Ireland series, and Cavan quite possibly going to thump everybody except maybe 1 or 2 in the semi-final, final, and Talton Cup. That's something jumped out at me over the weekend. But failing that, no, listen, there'll be bigger fish to fry next weekend and then in the weekends after.
Okay, good stuff. Big shout out to all our viewers. That's it for this Monday's edition of the Square D GAA Tactics and Analysis podcast with Stephen O'Mara, the protagonist, and myself, Paddy McGill. We will talk to you next week.